Efficiency Experts YouTube. We just want to achieve.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my humble abode. My name is Gunnar. You may know me as Dragon Seance. And today, the Efficiency Experts Roundtable podcast returns from hiatus with a special episode to discuss the state of the game in 2018. First, let's meet our panel.
Hi, I'm Andrew. You may know me in game as Determined. I'm a key and efficiency experts and about rank 120 or so in the new RuneScore high scores.
Hi, I'm Inter. I'm an RS3 player only. I have 5 XP, and I'm a key in efficiency experts as well.
Good morning, gamers. The #1 most respected esports member is back, and we're also joined by a special guest today, Wiki. What's up? It's the #1 DJ from RuneScape.
What?
Oh, didn't you say we're joined by a Wiki, like the DJ?
It appears there's been some confusion as to the panel.
What do you mean?
So basically, we're joined by several Wiki staff to discuss the transitioning of the host for the RuneScape Wiki. So the future of the site and what is collectively known as the RuneScape Encyclopedia, the RuneScape Wikipedia, and its future basically as a resource for players of RS3.
And we have two guests from the wiki here today with us. Thank you for joining. Cook, KelseW.
Hi, I'm Cook, also known as Cook Me Plox. I'm wearing a shirt with my name on it. My high skill is 81 cooking, and you can find me in the lobby very often.
All right then.
Yeah, I'm Kelsey. I've got a bit higher skills than Cook. I'm maxed at least, nearly comp Khazard in game. Yeah, that's about it.
And for those of you wondering, they are sharing a mic because wiki admins are meeting for a little festival. So they're in the same physical location, but when Kelsey or Cook talks, you should see the same mic light up there.
Hopefully you'll be able to tell the difference between our voices.
We're the same person.
It's been a busy year in RuneScape since our last podcast, and some of the main updates have been as follows. Crystal Skill Champas were released immediately after our last podcast. Collection Logs, Invention Batch 2, and the Lost Grove. Revolution ++, Combat Pets, the Evil Dave Quest, Stalker Creatures and Criminal Bolts, a Clue Rework, Deep Sea Fishing and Safe Cracking, the release of Solak, Elite Dungeons 1 and 2, along with the achievement high scores, player-owned farms, and the Quest Point Shop. So overall, it's been a pretty good year for RuneScape. We're looking at these updates with several criteria for evaluation. That would be the quality of the updates released, balancing, as in how they are when they came out, how they are after a few weeks, or how they are after they've been rebalanced, which is so often the case. And then we're also looking at the quantity of updates. So there's been a dearth of quests in the last couple of years. So those are the things we're considering when we look at updates.
Well, actually, Gunnar, so you said this has been a good year for RuneScape, and I would reframe that as a question, which is, has it been a good year for RuneScape? Because I think that's something that you see a lot of the community is constantly debating. And I'm interested in hearing everyone's take on that. Given the list of updates you just read, right, which is a lot of stuff, is that a good year worth of updates in the world of RuneScape 3?
Right, and we've seen the meme for $11, seen some of the negative reaction from subpar months. So that is totally fair. Is this a good year for RuneScape? I suppose that depends on what type of player you are. And if you consider that the reaction to some behind the scenes has been less than stellar, is that a result of the vocal minority thinking that, maybe Jagex should be including more updates on a monthly basis or more impactful updates on a monthly basis? But for some of us to look at that last year and see how many of those updates we're still using, we are still participating in, the Clue Rework, using Revolution ++, using the Aura bag, which I don't think was mentioned. So it totally depends on your type of play style, but
That's
definitely put in the comments how you feel this year has been for RuneScape.
well, okay. So that's you mentioned play style. So if you look at this past year, right, you've got I think you have something for almost every type of player, leaving aside the PKing side of the game. Sorry to all the PvPers out there.
Sorry to all 12 of you.
Yes. But it basically, and actually, I will say, if you really love quests and lore, probably not the best year. But for the other categories of players, if we like look at broad categories of players, if you're a PvMer, you got the Elite Dungeons and Solak. You got, I mean, kind of like the Criminal Bolts as a DPS change. You have a decent amount of updates to the PvM metagame. Then you have, if you're a skiller, I think you have like 3 skills here have been revamped. You've got Crystal Skill Champas for Hunter. You've got Deep Sea Fishing is like a whole new area for fishing. And you have Safe Cracking for thieving.
And not last but not least.
Oh, of course, player-owned farms, right?
Yeah, I would say that has fundamentally changed the meta for farming, especially for newer accounts, right? Who aren't 99 farming or even high level farming, where you don't have to have this GP sink where you go and get all these expensive seeds, run around and hope they don't die. There's only a couple traits that kill off player-owned farm creatures, and I've yet to see one. But it's a fundamental change in the way you train farming.
So
Absolutely. Well, my alt, I just buy chin chompers at the moment, like baby ones, for like 400k, and then you raise them in 8 hours. Not only do you get 72,000 farming XP in like a minute, you also make money. So I don't know how seeds haven't crushed yet, because just the amount of money and XP you get is insane.
Right. I think a lot of that is there's a huge barrier to information, right? And as we talk about the RS Wiki later, and we discuss things like that to you and I might not seem like they make sense. Like, why is this still X price? I think it's largely because people don't know. People don't know you can just raise baby to Addo chins and sell them and get the same amount of XP you would get from a fruit run. And instead of losing 500k, you make 1,000,000 GP with the same level requirement. So yeah, I think it's access to information that largely controls that.
well, we have a lot of diversity on the panel, right? So I'm kind of interested in hearing, like, I don't PvM very much. I haven't engaged with some of these PvM updates that much. But like, as the person here with probably the most PvM experience, from your perspective, do you think it's been a good year for RS? Do you like this PvM content that's come out? How do you feel about Solak Elite Dungeons? And then, like, for the less experienced PvMers, how do we feel about them if it's content that we still engaging with it?
I feel like especially the Solak release, for me personally, was a success. A lot of people didn't like it, mainly because the rewards were sort of lackluster, or like quite a few months after the release still, and the only thing you could probably get that is worth anything really was the bows, and that's it. But now that it received some changes, it's something that a lot of people would probably want to participate in, and it's pretty much comparable to AOD in terms of money. So
you think Solak has, but does it have similar popularity to AOD?
oh, absolutely not, because AOD is like a DPS dummy, whereas Solak, you have to actually think what you're doing. And in like a 7-man, at first it may seem even harder than a duo, but 7-mans, they do feel kind of like a DPS fest, but you do have to see, like, you have to be aware of your surroundings, you have to make the right decisions. At AOD, you just follow the crowd and you'll be fine. But in like a larger sort of picture, I would say that all the updates that come out that are PvM oriented, they get a lot of tinkering later on. They're not like released and they're there. They're perfect. I mean, nothing can be perfect, but a lot of it is like severely unbalanced on release, especially ED1. Like the crystals, for example, on Seiryu, they were balanced to 3-mans for even when you went
Even
solo.
on solo.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so nobody wanted to do solo. But then they changed it around where solo was like the only thing you would want to do if you wanted to make money. Right now, if you go
See,
there, you make no money as a trio or a duo.
right. Yeah, I kind of,
Absolutely.
my feeling on the PVM updates has kind of been that I like them as in a vacuum. Like if I didn't know what they dropped, what the rewards were, like what the GP per hour was, I would like Elite Dungeons a decent amount. I would really like Solak. I think Solak is a really enjoyable boss, even though I die more than half the time there. I have like 9 KC. I have a lot of fun doing it just because it's challenging, and it's just the mechanics are enjoyable. And actually a lot of the Elite Dungeon bosses have enjoyable mechanics for me too. Obviously those are not as challenging, but it's still like pretty fun. It's just once you add in the GP per hour, I guess that those updates have gotten a more negative reaction,
Well, it,
especially
like,
Elite
matters.
Dungeons. That's
The input you
pretty
put in
bad.
matters. And
So
for Solak,
so
you need a lot of
yeah,
input.
sorry. Yeah, definitely. So Solak definitely has that level of difficulty where any reasonable person would look at AOD versus Solak and say Solak takes a lot more reaction, a lot more skill, and you compared AOD to a DPS dummy. So if they were balancing around difficulty, Solak would make more money. And if you
And
look,
it's
if you
kind of the opposite.
yeah, and it's kind of the opposite. So a 2-year-old boss that gives you access to these consumables for 99 prayers it's obviously going to retain value. But should it be more money per hour than what's supposed to be the brand new attention getting boss? So that's something they're going to have to look at in the future too with Hostilis and other bosses. Is why would anybody do this if AOD is still more money?
Right. Yeah, so quick poll, how many times have each of you has everyone killed Solak on this panel? Like how much are people actually doing this content?
I did
I have one
around
kill.
400, but most of it was like on release or a few months after release, and then I stopped for a while, and I guess now I'm doing it again. So
I haven't done Solak once. I've done everything else, but Solak is just the one thing I haven't come around to, just because teams don't really accept learners anymore, and I don't know. It's hard to find someone to go with, to be honest. But Elite Dungeons, I played the hell out of.
Would
yes,
you pay?
I would like to
for a
point out
Solak?
that even though I probably have a decent amount of KC, it's still not really easy to find people to go with, even experienced people. And especially finding 7-man teams is almost impossible. You have to have a lot of KC already, or you're not even considered.
Right, which is not a great condition, right, for the game. And it's why the looking for fruit being so dead is a huge issue. If you look at other MMOs, you can get a learner team fairly easily where you not necessarily knowing the mechanics won't wipe your whole team. For RuneScape, that's not the case. One person in the team not knowing what's going on for a Solak or for raids. You hear the memes about asphyxiating stun pool. When one person doesn't know what's going on, there is so great an incentive for other people not to take them that it's very difficult to get into that a team to learn.
Yeah, I
And
would
that's
say that
probably not a good situation.
I would say that Solak is like learner friendly in terms of like when you bring somebody, you can just tell them to cade, like barricade, and at specific times, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, or intercept
throughout the
them,
kill. Yeah.
intercept Cade at the worst.
Whereas raids, yeah, if they asphyxiate, like the whole team dies and everybody gets angry.
What I actually really like that one. Some of those Solak mechanics though, where you are dependent on your teammates. I like the interaction. Like I love Solak Phase 4. I think it's one of the best PvM mechanics in RuneScape because
it's climactic.
It's yeah. First of all, yeah, there's a lot. It's high risk. Then you have the tug of war, where like even if when you're in a learner duo, which is what all my kills are like, because I'm the learner, like you have one person who's good and one person who's bad. So it's a race between like the good person trying to out survive or out DPS the learner who's trying to either like do good enough DPS or not die in the mine. So it's kind of a funny like tug of war. Like can someone being good overcome the other person being bad?
Right, definitely. So, but the question is, and we heard this a lot when Black came, is should there be a story mode or an easier mode where you're doing it to either get your comp back, right? Or doing it just to experience the content, but you might not be able to camp it the way some of your contemporaries are.
Well,
for
less
PvP.
profitable for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So they did that with story mode for the elite dungeons, and I think that worked out pretty well. They do what, 30% less damage or 33% less damage, and they don't really.
I think they
provide
deal
buffs.
like 2/3 less, and then you take, or you, I don't know,
I
they
don't
have
know
less
what it is.
HP. They have less HP
I
and
don't
deal
know,
less
'cause
damage.
It's not worth it for the average
We'll have
experienced
to wiki
player. But for somebody who is not particularly, yeah, we'll have to wiki it. It's not worth it for the particularly experienced or competent player, but for somebody who's either just trying to get their comp back or experience the content where lore is important. So with ED3 coming out, you want to know what happens between ED1 and ED2, right? So should we have that for every boss that comes out? I would argue yes. I don't think there's a reason to restrict players from Comp Cape necessarily because they can't do a Solak duo.
And I think it actually could be good to like get people to continue to do the content and maybe to learn the mechanics in a more safe or like less dangerous environment. Because like if you could learn.
No, 100%.
No?
There should be no story mode. Just no. First of all, there's already a safe mode. If you want to learn, you can just do that, like that little practice mode where you kill the boss and you don't lose anything when you die. So that exists for people to practice. And the whole idea behind a comp is to actually complete it. The content exists, so you have to do it. There should
But
be no
they're not.
easy mode. Imagine
Yeah,
They're
they'd
not
still
actually
they'd
doing
still
it.
be completing. Yeah,
Gunnar, would you care to? Gunnar, would you care to
That's why,
share
mate,
with
if you
the
buy leeches,
listeners
then-
how you recomped at
Yeah,
Solak?
sure. So for me, it wasn't worth the time nor eyes to do the practice. So
That's
I pay for a leech first day on almost everything that comes out because
Yeah,
it's
but
just
you
not worth my time. I'm
still
not
did-
completing the content. I'm just barricading.
That's all right. That's fine. If that exists within the content, that's okay.
I
Right,
think
I'm not-
that's.
I'm not saying leeching is not okay. What I'm saying is it doesn't help the game. It doesn't help players experience what the content means or the intent of the developers for the content. It
Well,
helps a
making it-
couple people get rich, but
Yeah.
which also is okay. But it's
Right, that's
not
my
the-
issue with
it's
it.
not the
Is it
situation
creates a
that makes it
cottage
good.
industry for someone to just like profit off the boss release by selling.
They're
That's
skilled enough
fine
to do
because
it.
they're good. Yeah, that's fine because they're skilled enough to do it.
I guess.
Yeah,
It's
I have no problem with with leeching at all, but I also think there's no reason to restrict players who don't have either the time to put into getting the mechanics where they won't restrict other people or spending the money on supplies where they can rely on themselves to do a kill. I just don't see the point. Like I've always been I don't care if anybody else has this as
So
long as I do.
Kelsey is like Solak off comp cape, right? Are you? Pretty much.
I think that's what they had said. Was that they're
Chelsea?
basically comped without
The realism.
Solak kill.
Well,
the idea is that if you have this story mode, you're not actually completing the content. You're completing a different piece of content.
You're
not-
completing a different difficulty of the same.
Yeah.
It's the same
So-
mechanic.
I don't
So
know.
just
It's
just give out like do a little trial mode for 99. So you got 92. That's close enough. Go on then. That's not
I don't think that's an accurate.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
120 quest points. Yeah,
No,
give me the rest.
because
I don't know
Yeah,
if that's a valid logical argument.
It is. It's 100%.
I think
you
it's
do it.
I think it's a bit of a reach because a 99 is based purely on time, not skill, right? So other bosses in this game already have story modes. There is some precedent for including that. I just don't see the
All right.
point.
Well, we can't spend 20 minutes on.
we can't spend
story
20
modes.
minutes on.
But-
But anyway, so it's of Inter's opinion that it's been a decent year for PvM. Speaking from a less skilled, less group-oriented standpoint, somebody who
I think it's
goes
been
for all
pretty
the
good.
titles,
Like
yeah,
Solak makes me want to get better. It makes me want to go learn PvM, and I think that's a good thing. And
that's what I noticed. Like the first thing that I noticed was Solak was the first boss where I wanted to get better, not like, oh, I have to get better or else it's like not profitable, not good. I didn't care about the profit. I cared about getting better, and in getting better, I actually started making money. And I felt like no other boss before that brought that out. Like AOD, you just go there, DPS, you get the drop. You don't really think about it.
My only issue, I guess, with the PvM updates is that the balancing of the rewards has been a little off. And my personal opinion is that's because previous PvM rewards were improperly balanced, meaning like
Yeah, they
Telos and
stated
AOD
that.
were too rewarding. I think Solak is okay. I think Elite Dungeons is okay, except for group mode where you make like awful money, and the KC doesn't even count for pet chance, which I think is a mistake.
Well, I
Right,
think they
so-
changed Telos and AOD because of people's outrage, not because they
Yeah,
really
they
wanted
were
to.
saying these are the hardest bosses.
Yeah, well, the thing with Telos was that it initially didn't keep 75% of your basic loot. So if you did like a 0 to 999 streak, you would just lose everything if you died. But then they kept it, and then it made it like the best boss there is.
Oh yeah, yeah. And AOD, they made the prayers go from overheads to usable with
Yeah, they could have just
overheads.
buffed the overheads.
Right. So that was the main thing with AOD is the long term making those prayers a straight upgrade over base curses is that it will be valuable forever. Like there's no way it's going to. Each account can utilize 3 Praesal codices, right? So the demand for those is not going down as quickly as one might think, right? They're still 500 mil odd couple years later, and they'll still retain that value. If mobile brings in the player base that some people think it will, I could see those codices going up. Like I don't know. It's definitely an issue of older bosses being too good more than new bosses not being good enough. ED1 is what, like 20 mil an hour, and ED2 is like 16 mil an hour. That's a good rate for a solo boss. Like that is close to what you want. They're engaging, they provide return. You can use T92s without them degrading. Like I really like the Elite Dungeons, and I think Elite Dungeon 3 will be amazing. I just think
If it comes out.
I would say when it comes out. It might come out, later than we originally thought, but
Well, all right. Let's move on from the PvM updates. And I actually think let's look at some of these updates. I think kind of have, if not created, certainly popularized a new playstyle, which really I think Jagex laid the groundwork for in 2017. Like we covered the achievement update when it was first released, and at the time we were pretty much like, this looks good, but there's not enough here, right? Like it came out and then it was just the achievement diaries. Like there wasn't anything to do. There were no like PvM achievements in there. We were underwhelmed at the time, but now it feels like the achievement system has been really integrated into everything. You have major pieces of content like the clue rework comes with its own whole set of achievements. You had deep sea fishing achievements. You have safe cracking achievements.
Player on farms achievements, like
and
each of those are being
also
incorporated.
you even have high scores now, which is I think what really solidifies this as a new play style is the fact that it has its own high scores.
Right.
So
Finally, a good update, and it took how long has it been? A year.
So when we talked about this initially, we said that the main good thing about the achievement system was how expandable it is. If we start seeing these every month, if we start seeing these with every content release, then this is amazing. Like this is something that the true trimmers, right, and the people who are interested in completing things post trim, it's going to be amazing. And that is finally starting to happen, is we're seeing that. And with the high scores, it's just more advertised that this is a valid play style. This is a way you can approach this game.
I think it's actually restoring like a competitive angle to the game, right? Because XP hasn't been competitive in a while. And PvM has been kind of the only competitive area of the game. But even that, it's like a smallish group of people
until we get high scores for KC.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That would change things a lot.
This is the best sort of most competitive standpoint that you can have. It's great.
I love it.
Every single piece of content. Well, hopefully every piece of content will be scored and like logged, because there's still a lot of room for things to like have achievements? Like, do you put it on like trouble brewing gear? Like, is that an achievement? Do you
I have it
do
all,
you-
so yes.
Yeah.
do you put it on Shades of Morton? Do you put it on like getting
Yeah.
monkey grease?
Oh,
Like,
I
there's
went
so
and did
many
like the
things.
necromancer outfit just in case. I was
So
like, I need to
yeah.
fill my house.
I have that too. So I will say I suggested to Shogun a list of potential achievements, and I am very far to the true trim, mindset. So one of the things I recommended was like completing the empty throne room, which is getting 800k agility, 800k mining, 800.
Doesn't that only take like 12 hours
No, not at all. Agility's like 12k an
or
hour.
30?
So that's like 70 hours. No, it's like 180 hours.
What is that? If you AFK it.
That's
Yeah,
if you
no, if you
AFK,
do the
right.
right bike or whatever.
Well, even if you try hard it, it's like I think it's
50.
probably about is it 50?
I don't know.
So either way, one of the things was
It-
speak to Awawogi with a blue monkey, as a blue-faced gorilla.
Oh,
like-
that would be insane. Isn't that
Yeah.
the one that's like from the zombie jar?
It's 1 in 3,000 from Zombie Umpling.
Yeah,
So have you
it'll be like
have you
so
started
much
to
more.
stock up on zombie jars?
Yeah, it'll be.
I'm not
That's the
trying-
thing. No, stop with this update merching, Gunner. Stop with the. You buy like 1,000 zombie jars. You PM Shogun the
full
achievement, then
disclosure-
you sell
Full
them.
disclosure, I have zeros on
Alright.
all of my accounts put together. But
So did you give like achievement names for what you think that should be?
why do you have one?
Well, that could be monkey to the city, because you need a
That's
little
pretty
creek to
good.
get into the
That's
city.
pretty good.
Monkey to the city. That'd be
All
alright.
right. Well, you
That-
PM Shogun and give it to him.
That's
it's out
hard.
of my hands now.
That's horrible.
But yeah, so it's how far do you go, and who are these
Well,
for?
Yeah, and that right. Who are these for? Are they for those ultra competitive people, or does every achievement need to be doable? Because what Jagex, it seems like they've been doing is they've taken some of the things that used to be really, really difficult to achieve or like really time consuming, and then they've nerfed them basically. So we had strange token is now like pretty easy to get. Obviously the Vitalis threshold, although that was demanded for a long time. And now, wasn't there another one, Gunnar? What were we talking
Kessie.
about? Oh, Kessie. Yeah, now you can get Kessie from Meg now that she gives additional rewards.
Two pieces.
And they're doubled, right? It's the same Maw table, but it's doubled. So now you get so people are getting like 2 Kessie pieces, which is ridiculous.
Insane. Yeah.
So
those
should all
are
these
RNG
achievements
things,
even be
though.
doable?
Yeah,
Like,
but then
should
again,
all
you
the-
just see it on Reddit. Like it's just one
Yeah.
person, and it's just
Yeah,
a
it could be 1 in
distortion of
20K.
reality.
RNG stuff
Yeah.
doesn't give score. So that's like score can be competitive without the RNG, without the hyper RNG.
Right, but it's the question of whether Jagex is to move towards this level of bad luck mitigation. Should we take anything that is crazy rare in this game and just hand it out from another piece of content? In this case, it's hard to create a relationship or a bridge between Meg and Kessie scrolls. Obviously, logistically,
Well, the Maw,
obviously
Maw's the
logistically, it's just the Maw, right? It's whatever the Maw gives, Meg can give double of. But it's should Jagex keep taking this unrelated content, right? And just putting it in based on bad luck mitigation.
or
So-
sometimes based on like balancing, because they also introduced rewards to the game based on when it's expedient. Like just because like once they decide they want to put a reward in the game, they just attach it to whatever piece of content's coming out next. Which sometimes
Right.
like the Quest Point shop we were saying doesn't have anything to do with clues, but they put clue rewards in the quest.
Right, exactly. Which
Why?
which is the opposite of opportune, right? Like it might be popular, but fortunate comps were already on their way down, and they're just gonna give everybody
They-
four
right,
elite
that one-
clues for
That
it.
one was
Yeah.
actually bad, like balancing in the wrong direction.
Yeah. So it's whatever is relevant at the time, which could be an issue in the future. But again, it depends on what they want to do. So do they want to make these absolutely insane achievements like the ones that True Trimmers were going for anyway that take, dozens of hours or hundreds of hours? Or do they want to just use it on a go forward basis? So that's a question that they definitely have to ask.
I
think
think if you were real, sorry, enter you.
I just want to say that I think that things like 2K Telos, 4K Telos are something that should be on there as achievements that matter, that have like value. people spend so much time getting them, but it's just a message, and that's it. Like, even though I'm probably never gonna get to 4K.
It's dopamine.
You get a title. So you get the title in silver, you get the title in gold.
I guess.
I think.
I mean,
think
why
that
do
is
we
an
do
appropriate
anything
reward.
on a game? That's like a philosophical question, but
so,
yeah.
But also, it's a what motivates players, right? So to me, if that gave rune score and I can't get the max rune score because I, highly doubt until it's 2030 and I'm playing the game with 40,000 LP that I'll be able to kill 4K Telos, right? So that would deject me from doing achievements. I would be like, what's the point? So I think there's a lot of players that would be dissuaded.
Oh, you're
going for
saying
max
that's an
rune score.
interesting perspective. Like you wouldn't
Should
go
they give
for
points
high
or
rune
not?
score. You wouldn't
Yeah.
go for high rune. Well, Telos doesn't beyond 1,000. So
Yeah,
I think
correct. Yeah.
I think that while I said it's part of the content, like earlier with Solak, I think that all of it still should be relatively attainable. So
I
the
agree.
feats,
yeah, I think it
achievement
should be
feats
difficult, but
should be 0 points, and like doing Talos to such an extreme degree is
Well, it
cool,
could be like
and you
Clue
should get
Scrolls.
rewarded for an
It doesn't have
achievement
to
for it.
be necessarily.
I think good
Talos.
balance for prestige is like, anywhere from 100 to 1,000 people can do it or have done it. I think if it's in the thousands, then it like loses its prestige. But if it's too rare, if it's like 10 or 20 people, like IFB right now, it's like 10 or it's like 20 people.
10K Slithles.
Yeah,
That's
like
all I
that
gotta say. 10K
That's
Slithles.
stupid.
Could
That's
be
stupid.
a feat of strength, something like that, as well as like maybe like getting a max on
That's just grind though,
a
it's not
kill
skill.
counter. Yeah, well, it is, but like, that's what the feats are? They're supposed to be something so stupid.
Right. Well, that's a skill, right? Being able to dedicate.
Well, I was talking
yourself
about
to-
Slithel.
Yeah,
like,
so am I.
You could have like 5.4 as a feat. You could have what else is it? Like that Slithels. They are, or even like the world first. Like if you are a person that gets one of those announcements, like the first person to kill, so like that could be a feat, and that way they're achievements that aren't always attainable by everyone, but they don't give any like extra points, so you can't like get a lead on someone. They're just
Right.
like show
Right. So I am going to disagree with Inter that they should give points, but I agree that it is important to have things that motivate people to go to the nth degree for content, to go above and beyond what the developers intended. So like for Telos, right? Getting 4K they never designed Telos around players getting 4K at all. When they come out with Hostilis or Hostilius, however you say it, they're probably not going to balance around players doing it at its hardest iteration. So,
right.
But they should encourage players to go as far as they can. Definitely.
I think we always do this though, where because we want to do like the most ridiculous things, then we assume Jagex should cater to us with updates, which isn't the case. Like I think the achievements that give score, there has to be a cap on the difficulty of achievements that give score. There has to be difficult, quite difficult even, but not like you have to be a top 5 player at this specific aspect of the game to do it.
Should 6-minute hard mode nomad be points, or should it be just a feat?
It should be points because I did it, so it can't be that hard.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
And there's power creep, like that gets easier. And I think the question in general is like this new playstyle, right? There's a lot of potential, and it's not even really new. It's been there all along, but now it's formally recognized, like it's codified.
Yeah, True Trim has been around for a while, but there are many more True Trimmers now than there were 3 months.
There's a lot of people introduced to it, and how is Jagex going to respond? Like which of these people, like who are they going to cater towards? The most extreme, which by the way, we have to mention with the RuneScore high scores, we have to give shout outs to L33 Inefficiency Experts, rank 1 on release, Strawberries, rank 3 on release, Omid, rank 12 on release, and our missing panel member, Alex Evu, was like rank 36 or so. So shout outs to those guys for impressing us with their dedication.
You're right to say we are an extreme, right? We're a portion of the population that cares about this game enough to make a podcast, or is so heavily invested in this game that we're going to go out and discuss it and record it, but also that we're going to dedicate X amount of time and effort to trying to achieve things, whereas a lot of players are casual. So
We have casual players here, though. If they're
do.
still here. Well, not, I wouldn't say completely casual, other than cooking is 81 cooking.
It's a good
That's
skill.
pretty hardcore. That's pretty hardcore.
So Kelsey, is RuneScore something that interests you as a max player who's close to comp?
I mean,
Or do you just want the cape?
incentive for people to go beyond, like Gunnar said. However, I don't think that Jagex should have it in mind when planning stuff. Just because the large majority just don't really care, frankly. It's nice to have, a little title or something, but the people that were gonna go and get, 4,000 in rage for the title, they're just doing it for the prestige, etc. Right? So I don't think
They would have done it anyway.
What about more achievable things, though? So, like, they are designing, right, and safe cracking, deep sea fishing with achievements partially in mind. Do you think that's a good strategy, where some of these achievements are very easy? You might get some on accident.
Some of the safe cracking ones, I had a gripe with safe cracking where it kind of sucked because there was an achievement for like buying all the stuff, but you got like they weren't useful items to buy. So like you were only doing it for the score. It just saves an inventory space. So like you're doing all this just to get the points and for literally no other reason. I kind of agree with Kelsey that it should be the content. It can't be the only reason for doing a piece of content.
Actually, that piece of content specifically, like the stethoscope, it was actually a downgrade because you can't use brawlers efficiently with them.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't even want.
Well, I'm 200 mil, but
but the fact that there's achievements for it makes you train different approach.
Alex has boycotted. He told me he's boycotting the City Quest achievement because he thinks it's bullshit. Even though
it shouldn't be 200. It shouldn't be 200. I agree with him there.
These arbitrary numbers are pretty obnoxious.
Because 200, doing content 200 times.
1,000 clue scrolls is too high.
I don't know if 1,000 is too high because it takes about 700 just to get all the rewards. So
if you do elite and master only?
If you do elite and master only, it takes like 780.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, so I don't think 1,000 is necessarily too
That's
high
all
for
right.
that one. But 200 city quests where there's nothing new after you get the 2 gems, it's just longevity for longevity's sake.
And yet you advocate for 10k Slithel. And yet
I do. So,
So you make no sense. Your argument's logically inconsistent.
Go forward basis. Go forward
One
basis.
would be
You got to
pointed
start
and one
sometime.
would be non-pointed. One would be a feat.
Yeah, there you go. Do it that way. So,
Well, I guess the point is like a lot of people don't care about RuneScore. It's fun for us. And actually, I think it's kind of interesting to see the impact on the clan because where we have like almost 10% of the clanmates, our clanmates are 5.4 or maybe more than 10% if you don't count the ults.
Say, we have 50. Yeah, we have like what?
40,
50.
Something.
Yeah.
It's almost 50. So these people need a reason to keep playing. For some of them, it's been PvM. PvM has been like Jagex had. I feel like they kind of shifted towards it in 2016, 2017, but now they have this other avenue, like a different way to keep people engaged past XP. And maybe like most of the community doesn't care about it. But for the clan, like I think we are historically like just an XP clan. And now we're like an XP plus often like achievement.
Now we're an achievement clan. And it's a weird transition to see, right? Because once a large percentage of us stopped getting XP, there was a clear mentality shift towards doing things like PvM, doing things like clue scrolls. And we have people who are starting to incorporate, just for example, I always incorporated that stuff into my gameplay. So I did like Hunter. I could have got 200 mil Hunter faster with whatever Draconic Jadenkos, but I did the charm sprites because I knew I'd be doing it anyway. So we have a lot of people that are now factoring those in. Like if I'm going to go for titles on all these bosses, I should get my combat XP through titles because overall that's more efficient. We're seeing a clear shift towards that mentality.
I think 2018 is the year of the achievement. That's basically what I would.
It's a fantastic update. It's great, and it's finally good. I just don't know why it took so long. The question is though, when are they going to let me use my treasure hunter keys to get some achievement points?
No, the question is when are you gonna finish 5.4, Shane? You need to
Never.
10 months to do 80 mil XP.
Quest skip tokens would be cool. That's a good idea, Jagex. You could do Castle Wars skip tokens. That's another little thing you can
That's
put on.
enough. That's enough
yeah,
of that.
that's enough memeing.
But for skilling though, just quickly, because we are I think almost an hour in. I do think for skilling it's also been a pretty good year with, like I said, Crystal Skill Champa's kind of revitalizing Hunter. I don't think Hunter even really needed an update with Ornate's portals.
It's just another thing to hunt. It's not that different. It's not really an update.
Right.
Safe cracking.
Different colored chin. Safe cracking, great
is
update.
Great. Build that hole for like mid-level thieving where it was really, really a horrible experience to train, and now it's like.
Unless you enjoyed blackjacking at the highest.
Play. Yeah, that was
that
bad.
It is like AFK, but then if you want to bring it up to a higher skill level, you can just like pay 100% attention. That's another good thing.
Yeah, it's again options like, do you want to be high intensity, low intensity within the same method, which is kind of impressive.
Yeah.
And then
one thing we didn't discuss though, and this is relevant, is deep sea fishing.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, one of the most impactful parts of deep sea fishing though was nothing to do with fishing really. It was the traveling merchant. So we look at how the traveling merchant gives out as
I think that's just a nice gold.
But it gives out completely unrelated rewards.
Oh yeah.
It
like
gives
they
you
just
ways to skip
wiped out Livid. Yeah.
Yeah. It gives you ways to do stealing creation without playing stealing creation. It gives you anima from Shattered Worlds. Like there's so much content that you can skip just by going to the traveling merchant every day. Is that a good update?
No.
Or does it just capitalize on dead content?
It's enough.
God, you got.
Well, no, you
it was fucking horrible. It's atrocious because not only they come out and go, we want to remove dailies, right? And they come out and they introduce the daily that is the worst daily to do. You have to hop. It's like you hop around worlds, like
or join an FC or Discord.
Yeah. It's the way they could have done it, even if they wanted to implement it, is like just like you have to actually unlock it via like completing the fishing.
And it's always there.
And it's always there, or it shows up to your port. Like, it shows up to your player own port. Just rocks up.
I will say,
I like it as a gold sync, but I don't like the rewards. They're like, it doesn't make sense. And it's making dead content of something like Livid.
Right, exactly. So I will say though, for something like that, where it's unrelated rewards, but it keeps deep sea fishing. It gives the update hype, right? So I can understand why they did it.
But that's the problem. Deep sea fishing is really good content. Like it looks good. The mechanics are pretty good. And the randoms and everything. Like it is a really cool piece of content. And yet it's pretty much dead other than like the people who bought sailfish. And that's because the main method, deep sea fishing also had like the low, the like high effort and low effort methods where you have frenzy and sailfish. And the high effort method is just imbalanced. It's another case where like one small balancing change would have made that an awesome update. And instead it's like a little meh because no one does frenzy because it's the same rate as Wabagongs with skill champas, which are super cheap now because of player on farms, by the way. So like if they made frenzy 600k an hour and Wabagong was 400k, a lot of people would choose to do the higher effort method. But if they're both 400k, no one is going to do frenzy and no one's going to do sailfish either because it's not good money.
Well, they could have easily fixed it by synergizing fishing with the traveling merchant, having like some sort of contract system. You maybe do like 5 minutes of frenzy or fish like 50 sailfish, and then you get access to the traveling merchant. and it would be maybe
Like for the
at an
day?
There you go.
accelerator. Yeah,
There
I
you
like
go.
that.
That's
I
pretty
like that.
powerful.
Although frenzy, like if you do 5 minutes, it's bad because you have to get up to the max
I
multiplier.
mean, it could
but
be
Yeah,
any
yeah, yeah.
I
any
do
time
like
frame.
that.
It could be any amount. There, touch like 100 of these pools that spawn. Anything like
Yeah,
that.
what people do, see, people would definitely do like, let's say they do 15 minutes of frenzy to save an hour of livid farm. Still worth it, but now it's not just a like bang, you
Yeah,
don't have
that
to
keeps
engage.
like the whole content relevant, not just one piece.
So it keeps the content relevant and it's balanced, right? But to Shane's point,
Still makes
a
no
lot
sense.
of a lot of players thought that Jagex agreed, we're going to reduce dailies, right? And this is another daily, a very, very powerful daily that they introduced to the game after that statement. Now, I don't necessarily agree, and I tend to play devil's advocate all the time for the reduction of dailies. I've always loved dailies, still do. That's an argument for another podcast. But how do you feel about them consistently using time locks and daily restrictions to keep content active and to balance content despite having made that statement?
I mean, I guess that specific content may have been made sort of for people already. So, like, they were ready to release it and they made that statement and released it because that's how it was meant to be initially. And they didn't want to change the whole dynamic of the update. And so they just kept it the same way. But, like,
What's the excuse for player-owned farms then? Because player-owned farms has daily elements. Well, we could say that's the nature of it, right? That's the nature of. But
The
Yeah, I
dailies
guess,
don't
but
bother
POF,
me,
you
but
don't like miss out on anything. You go there, you
you
get your
do
farming XP.
if you don't go through the small, selling 12 things to the small seller every day, selling 12 things to the medium seller every 2 days, selling 12 things to the large seller every 3 days. There is a daily element to it.
It's
That's
not
not
like
to
a
say
ports trader though, who is like, oh, if you don't go today, then you might not get this resource for 2 weeks. They're almost always there.
Oh, that's
porch.
true. That's true.
I never did porch trader. That's not even a good daily.
Right, but here's the thing. It's still
That's like
an element that requires you to do X content X times daily, and whether or not we agree with that, it is something they said they're to reduce. So we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, we have to leave Dailyscape for another podcast.
Yeah, that's
But
an entire podcast.
Other than that, I do love player on farms as an update. It's really nice. It's like
really good.
So like it's the classic iceberg style update where like you get, it just comes out and then no one really knows what they're doing. And then like there's so much information. You have like the wiki rushing to document it all. And then you have like players separating into groups where some players, there's kind of 3 approaches. I saw like three approaches out of the player on farm update. You had people like L33 who were just like, I want to complete everything as soon as possible, and I'm just gonna like pay whatever I need to get it done. Then you have the opportunist who comes in and like sees the market opportunity and uses player on farms as a money making method by breeding and selling to them. And then you have like the people who are just like, this is me, by the way. Like I don't want to spend 200 mil. I'm gonna like take my time, just basically grow my own stuff.
Oh, for sure. And as people found out more and more, you change wildly. You saw the money making change wildly. A good example is everybody didn't have their comp, right? So they were like, oh my God, I've got to make 5,000 beans to unlock the seasonalizer. Like, that's going to take forever. I'm getting like 17 beans, blah, 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 from these damn rabbits. But today I went to my farm and I picked up all the adolescents that had bred a couple days ago, and I got almost 10K beans today alone. Like, it's taking that amount of time to learn an update and for the community to completely
collectively learn
explore
it, like
together. Right, collectively learn it. That's a good update. I think player owned farms was masterfully executed. Now, long term, the impact of player owned farms, I don't think is even fully in the game yet, right? So we have a couple of good perks, like the rooster perk that gives you increased ghostly essence for people that camp spirit mages and spirit warriors. You have the spider perk for the 3% damage against Araxor and Araxi. But because of how expandable the content is, they can keep adding relevant groups of animals and perks. And I think the expandability and the explorability is really, really what makes player-owned farms a good update, and something that they should use to model future updates.
It's a fantastic update, and it was only just a bit away from being like an incredible update. It is.
What's that
fun
bit?
to do. Well, I feel like it's just not as big as it should be, because and it was almost going to be a skill on old school RuneScape. There was an idea of having animal husbandry, and to me it is something that should have been a skill rather than just like a little.
See, I thought about that because people were talking about it on Reddit, but I don't agree, because if this was a skill, right, everyone would be bashing it. You'd have the opposite reaction, because everyone would just be like, this is just farming V2. They just copy pasted farming and gave us another skill.
Farming.
Yeah.
There's not enough diversity. There's only types. Whatever.
People always have a whinge. People were even whinging about this. People were even whinging about it being on the wiki, right? Because sorry, not on the wiki, on Reddit, people were having a big whinge because the game, like, it came out and they didn't know how to do it. So even
they wanted all the info.
Always going to have a cry because they didn't know how to do an update.
That's a huge split in the community, right? People who want everything fully explained when it comes out, and people who want to explore for themselves. People were so pissed at the You're It quest because they didn't explain anything, and it was just like, nonsensical introduction and teasers. And there's people who are like, oh, mysterious, like, this is exciting. Like, we have the tainted crystal in the game right now. Like, I'm like, what does this do? Like, some people are intrigued, and some people are, why should I care about this? I don't. There's no reason. Why can't Jagex just tell us?
It's only because there's a comp rec, honestly, and we need to do a separate podcast on, or we've kind of talked about, I think, before, how comp influences people's reaction to updates.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, if an update comes out and they don't understand how to get comp back, then they get very salty.
On the farming thing, the reason I say that is because there's only sort of like 5 traits that are even worth anything at all, like maintaining, like studly, virile, sparkling, glistening, radiant.
Yeah, and then there's the individualized one.
And
the bread.
Good breeding.
But everything else doesn't seem to like have an impact that much, and they don't seem to be. It should have been like sort of a bit more inheritable. So like, good traits can create better traits more often.
They sort of do, right? Because you have like the trait trees of.
We don't really know. We just don't really know yet. We still don't know.
We don't know enough. We don't know enough, and so there's the issue of player-owned farms coming out where animals have speed, they have attractiveness, they have all these characteristics that do nothing. So the question is, would you rather this update come out with elements that are still left to be hashed, still left to be explored, or would you rather have Jagex wait until every component does something, till all the traits do something? I kind of like it. I kind of like batched content. I know that's, a flame-worthy statement, but I kind of like batched content. Even if they don't always make it to everything, I feel like player-owned farms is batched content. It's very playable.
And I've seen lots of people say they look forward to logging in specifically because of player-owned farms.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you reckon, Cook?
I don't know.
I mean, I think I'm still here, guys. Don't worry. Batch content creates an unreasonable expectation in the community that is rarely actually met. Like, can you really name me any Venus from 4 years ago? Can you really name me anything that really lived up to the expectation created by the first piece?
Arc 1, Arc 2, but that's only because Arc 1 was not good.
Dungeoneering.
Arc 2 was
Dungeoneering,
amazing.
yeah.
Invention Batch 2 was dope.
Yeah, almost all the Batch 2s lived up to the hype plus more. They were better, and we end up saying, why didn't this come out together?
Well, sometimes they go in back and rebalance stuff from Batch 1. So Elite Dungeon 2 fixed Elite
stuff that came before. It's also just understanding the input from the community about, that's
exactly what I was going to say, yeah. is you release that first batch, and I
People
think
yell at you.
personally that but people yelling at you for what's wrong is people telling you things you didn't know were wrong. And that's half the battle, right? Is correcting the things that the community doesn't want to see, that you didn't know they didn't want to see. So
yeah, it
that's
could
why these
result in a
batch
better.
twos- yeah.
But everyone knows batched updates result in a good final product. The problem they have is that sometimes that product never actually gets delivered. Like you get batch
sure.
1 and then batch 2 never shows up. That's, I guess,
Mhm.
the issue.
So if they were to ever release this like in old school, because it would be a very similar update, I think it should be almost the same, just more in depth. And I think the other thing is that within pens, you should be able to like build a habitat that use up like finite resources to encourage breeding. So like if you have, I don't know.
Oh
something
yeah.
Winter related, you could
Sure.
use like winter items in a pen, and it would encourage them because like,
It'd be
I-
interesting if there was a cost to switching which animals
Yeah.
you had too.
That will exist, I think, at some point, is some sort of pheromone like item to encourage
Like-
your
like-
animals to do the sexy time. But
like dragons on RuneScape are supposed to love runite. You'd think that you could put
They are.
runite items in there, and it would like encourage.
Are you a lorehound, Shane?
I'm the number one lorehound. I'm in.
no, I think some
I
people
thought you were the
some
eternal
people
rank
have,
1 Dark Souls
issue
player.
with that.
both.
Yeah.
I'm insatiable.
There are some pretty big lorehounds on the wiki and
Yeah, I'm
and
allergic.
vandalizing
I'm
the
allergic.
wiki.
Yeah. So
Speaking of wiki,
yeah, we should definitely wrap things up here with the discussion. Andrew, do you have anything else you want to comment on with regards to the last calendar year of updates?
It's a good year, and if you don't agree that it's a good year, then you're wrong. I mean, and achievements are the best thing, maybe in the past 5 years, to happen to the game.
I'm not going to say people are necessarily wrong if they don't think it was a good year, but I would like to see people's comments on if they don't think it was a good year. And the question is, what makes it a good year? If the community response is poor, that is one measure of what makes a year good or not. So the
And we
content
didn't even talk
itself
about-
is good.
Well, also like there's like we just look at how much we just had to talk about and how much the game has changed. And in the midst of all this, they've been working on these major updates, which we didn't go into because there's just
we
too
can't
much to talk about
mobile. We
with them.
can't talk skill
But
overload.
the point is, like, while balancing that demand, they're creating all this good content. I think it's a pretty successful year.
the reason that people were upset for so long is though even though there was some good content coming out, it was just they kept like lying and changing and like bank rework, which is again bank rework.
Yeah,
They're
where's
like,
bank rework? What's going on with
it's
that?
coming out, boys. We're gonna do
See,
it.
I'm
never mind,
I'm
we're dropping it,
indifferent.
We'll work
I'm
on it.
indifferent to the bank rework. They never have to come out with it. I couldn't care less. Presets took away
Gunnar,
the need for the bank rework.
I feel like you just like, as long as new content's coming out, you don't particularly mind what content it is.
Yeah, I guess you're right. As long as I can abuse it and I have something to do. Yes, you're totally right. But speaking to that, I think we have to look at updates from a longer review period, right? So we had this knee-jerk reaction to expansions. So Menaphos came out, and the reaction was so visceral and immediate that Jagex is like, oh, okay, we're canceling expansions. We had this plan for 3, we'll just do 1, and it's obvious to that. On to unfinished business. Look back at Menaphos, right? Menaphos took X amount of time of dev time where we still had minor updates. We still had 1 or 2 medium updates a month, maybe not a large update as often as we would have had otherwise. But Menaphos was huge. Look at the Personal Slayer dungeon and the impact that has had on
Now,
money
I
making PvM.
don't agree. I think that other than the Personal Slayer dungeon, that's like everything else in Menaphos isn't super important.
Because you're super high level. Look at it from the mid game.
Because I got lucky on Magister title, but yeah, maybe.
Look at it from level 50 to level 90. Like the mining, right? The mining is insane. The Acadia trees are some of the best that is not a daily. There's so much skilling in the city that is good, and it is really a mid-level hub. Like
We talked
I-
we talked a lot about
I know.
Metaphos on this podcast
I
already.
think though my point is that our review cycle needs to be expanded a little bit.
I just think that
that's my
they
only point.
I agree, because I mostly think it's from a balancing issue. If you look at this year, like all these updates, quality wise, they're great, and the only ones that didn't get a great reception, it's usually because of a balancing issue, not because of the content itself. And that's why I think they need to. I don't know if they do this already formally, but they need to review the balancing of content that's when they need the longer review period. Like 6 months after, they need to look at the metrics for a piece of content and be like, are enough people still doing this? As many people as
Right.
we wanted. And
Yeah,
if not, do we need
they
to
could
go
do-
change that?
They could revisit stuff a month after. But anyway, all right.
That's
so-
why deep sea fishing. Yeah. All right.
we have so much to say, but not a lot of time to. So if anybody closing topics they want to discuss, we'll save it for next time. So let's move on to the wiki and the changes coming to the wiki and some questions we have from the wiki staff. And yeah, take it away.
Yeah, this is really big news in RuneScape. If you haven't been paying attention, is that the RuneScape Wiki is moving away from Fandom, which is a for-profit company based in the US, I think, that hosts a lot of video game wikis, including the RuneScape Wiki since their inception, RuneScape and old school RuneScape, to basically self-host via a nonprofit set up by the wiki's highest level administrators, aka bureaucrats. And we have two special guests, as we said, from the wiki here to tell us more about that and answer some questions. And then I think they may also have some questions for us. So, Cook and Kelsey. First of all, why is the wiki forking? I think that's the fundamental question here.
I would say we've disliked our old host Wikia for really close to a decade now. It hasn't been them. They've taken our work that really has just been out of the our interest in promoting content in RuneScape. They've taken it and they've monetized it to a point that it's hard to really say that it's a good experience anymore visiting the wiki. And because of the license that all of the content on Wikia is under, it's actually very difficult for us to just say, you know what, we want to leave. We don't want to deal with your crap anymore. We want to go off on our own and just start our own site, because what they'll do is they'll keep the old content up, and Google will not really notice, hey, no one's really touching this anymore. No updates are happening. Even if essentially the entire editing community leaves, will still direct traffic towards the old wiki, because search engine optimization is a very slow moving process sometimes. So this has always been a difficult decision for us to make. Of, you know, we really massively dislike the host we have right now, but we felt that we would just splinter the community, and in the long run and the short run just result in a worse experience for the RuneScape community overall, splitting the content between multiple sites. What changed about a year ago is Jagex started talking to us, and they said, you know what, that's actually a good idea. You shouldn't be on Wikia anymore. There should actually be a good experience for people using what is by far the most popular RuneScape help site. It's fairly ubiquitous these days, and Jagex has a vested interest in making it so that this help site that everyone, including them, uses, and has a good layout and has good content, and is just generally not not what Wikia is providing right now. So
this is
we've
gonna
been
be
in
different from the old RuneScape Wiki.
it's going to be on a new domain. Everything else, all the content, all of the editors, all of the images, all of the entire structure of the wiki is going to remain the same. It's just going to be on a new domain, which is, again, runescape.wiki and oldschool.runescape.wiki for the old school wiki. What this does is it gives us a lot of more freedom to, for starters, we're not going to run advertisements. That's a big thing. There's no more, hey, you just won $100 million for winning this iPhone pop-up
That's good.
that we get complaints about on Reddit every day. And in the past, we just had to say, we can't do anything.
Yeah, and I'm sure people who use it on their phones will know that it is even worse. The mobile version is even worse with the pop-up advertisements and the inability to even F5 or refresh the mobile page to get away from that. I'm just trying to find out what this is, what the price of this is on the GE, and I can't do it.
The mobile experience is so bad. I don't even bother to go to the wiki on my phone.
Feeling is that Jagex's kind of interest in taking this action with us at least partially stemmed from what they expect to be an increased reliance on mobile traffic to the game, and in response to that, mobile traffic to the wiki. So take whatever badness there is associated with the browser version of the site, multiply it by probably 5, and then you're about at the mobile level.
That's interesting. I never really considered the fact that the release of RuneScape Mobile means you have even more people who are playing the game on their phone. Now they're looking shit up on their phone. And so they're having a bad experience doing that.
And they come to you?
It was a bit of a mixture. It was, so Wikia introduced these things called featured videos about a year ago, back in last August, I'll say. And they were just incredibly awful videos about narrated by someone who had probably never played any video game before in their life, based on what they seem to know about anything. One of my it's kind of become a meme is the Zamek Wizard. You have to go fight a Zamek Wizard after you do this, and it will give you like 1,000 profits. It was a disgrace, honestly. So we complained about that. People were bitching about it on Reddit, and we did our best to alleviate what we could, but in the end, it came down to the same thing that almost all of these issues do, which is we don't have control over this. So Mod Balance, may he rest in peace. He's not dead, but he's not at Jagex anymore. He reached out to us in early October of last year and said, hey, would like to support you guys a lot better. What can we do? What can we do to actually make that happen? And the conversation quickly turned away from, okay, how do we make this experience on Wikia better, to how do we actually support you to go out on your own and be able to make this great thing that you want to be able to make? So a bunch of the RuneScape Wiki admins, about a year ago, actually, we're here again, but we were there a year ago too, and we had a meeting with Balance and Shawnee, and we talked to Dave Osborne and a few other people about how much they internally use the wiki and how much they saw great value, both monetarily and just from a community perspective, in the wiki was good. So we got really, really excited about that, and we were sort of under the impression that we would be able to hammer out an arrangement, a legal partnership for this. It ended up taking about a year, but we're here now, and we're moving forward, and we have just a huge amount of support from Jagex on this. They are, we can say this, right? They're covering our expenses, all hosting, system administration, anything like that, and they're working really closely with us to link the wiki everywhere they can. There's been a lot of discussion on mostly on old school, but a little bit on RuneScape 3 recently about what would happen if we actually added some sort of in-game integration where you could either on the wiki from in-game, or even click on things and that would take you to the relevant page. So we're like seriously excited. That's not like political talk. This is something that we can tell the rest of the world about, and that we can move towards actually launching the new wiki, which is happening on October 2nd, this next Tuesday. We're going launch mode where the old wiki will be completely deprecated. All of the editors will be moving over. All of the content will start to sync with what you'd expect it to be. And then we're really going to start to push to away from the old wiki, because it's no longer going to be updated. It's just going to be even worse than it already is.
So,
So that-
is there?
You first,
You
Shane.
go, Gunnar. You go.
No. You
Alright,
first.
well, so my first question is, obviously the old RuneScape wiki that Jagex used to run closed in 2016. How's this going to be
Yeah,
different?
2015, I think. But yeah. The question?
How's it going to be different?
So Jagex has actually no control over this wiki whatsoever. They're not controlling the content. In fact, there's very specific legal stipulations about what they can't do to control the wiki content. Like there's been a lot of questions of, oh, what happens if they want to get rid of some controversy section on the Squeal of Fortune page? They can't do that. Like they would be breaking this contract we have.
Cook,
So
you
it's
want
still
to
gonna be
maybe
all the same
quickly
editors.
explain the legal entity on the other side of the contract? It's Jagex and
Sure. Yeah. So the company that we started, me and Gaz Lloyd, is called. Hi, Gaz is here too in the distance. We started a company called Weird Gloop Limited, and it's incorporated in the United Kingdom. And really, the point of this company is really just to have a legal entity to be able to enter into business arrangements with Jagex. And so there's some entity that is responsible and financially responsible for this whole mess that we're starting. So that's a company we started last year, and it's a public company. So you can look it up. You can look us up.
It's not Jagex's wiki, essentially. It's Weird Gloop's wiki in
Supported by
partnership with Jagex.
Yeah.
Right.
Jagex is, I mean, it's not really out of the goodness of their heart. This is like a good business move for them, clearly, but they are supporting it. They are not running it. We are in physical control of the servers. We continue to just be in control of the content. It bears much more resemblance to just the current RuneScape wiki that's on Wikia than anything with the Jagex wiki. And from
you're not some random people either. This is the same people who have been running the Wikia wiki.
Absolutely. This is essentially the main administrative crew from the RuneScape wiki that has really in large part been manning the ship for 8 or 10 years. We're not just like offshooting from the mothership. This is everyone. If you go, you can find the thread. But if you go look at the thread about,
we'll link it in the description.
Yeah, discussing leaving Wikia. 110 people supporting it now, and yeah. So
and how many opposes?
One opposed today actually, but it was just because he was just angry about some things.
That's still a pretty good ratio.
So what does this mean really for your average RuneScape player, right? Who's probably heavily using the wiki and maybe not ever editing it or editing it rarely.
Yeah. So just for non-editors, for starters, this is going to mean you're going to get a much more tailored wiki experience. You're not going to see ads. You're not going to have to, even if you have an ad blocker, it's not going to bog down your ad blocker with all the work it has to do. The site itself is in large part going to remain the same, other than the domain change that we've reskinned a little bit to be more in line with, let's say, how Wikipedia does things. It's essentially a slightly recolored.
Yes, I'm a big fan of that.
Wikipedia is just very popular skin. There's going to be, I think, a lot more kind of Jagex integration going forward. I mentioned there's a strong likelihood that there will be some level of in-game integration. I would say the thing we're most excited about is because we have control over our own infrastructure going forward, just insanely cool projects that we've been wanting to do for sometimes more than a decade that we've just been unable to. So some examples of that are a lot of you guys, especially in EE, have contributed to this rune metrics drop logging project, where we got everyone's drop log data from rune metrics and are starting to parse drop rates out of it, both for rare items and common items. And we're going to start putting that in these drop table pages. So this scourge that everyone hates of, oh, we think it's common or uncommon or rare or very rare, which again doesn't really mean anything. We are going to do our very best to replace that with very, very accurate estimated drop rates, or if we have reason to believe we know the exact rate due to, powers of 2 or something like that.
Yeah, binomial
would-
rates. Yeah.
That.
So that has
That's
a huge impact. Sorry to interrupt, but that has a huge impact for when people are discussing what is the most efficient method versus you should be doing this at X level, you should be doing that at X level. And the example I'll just bring up is something like the corporeal beast, where you don't know exactly how often you're going to get onyx bolts. You don't know exactly how often you're going to get cannonballs, but you know how many kills per hour you're getting, right? So you can take that, you can multiply out by these established drop rates that you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of kills.
One of them, I think there's 100 monsters we have over 1 million drops for.
Right, and that's absolutely incredible in order to get a better idea of what the GP per hour is for particular methods and allow players to make better decisions on how they spend their time.
Yeah, I think that's the main takeaway is you know better what to expect. And and better tools in general. I think there are lots of are there any other projects besides the drop log project?
So many others. You got to stop me from talking one of these days. But one of the things I'm really excited about is it's essentially Google Maps for RuneScape. We call it Dougal Maps after Dougal leaves, because there's some really obscure reference to that in some I think in the Path
Shane,
of
you like
Blackfree or
that?
something.
Yeah, if you're not using the right or image for Dougal leaves like right in the middle of the logo, then it's a missed opportunity.
It's we're hitting those opportunities, man. I promise. So it's essentially we have from the game files that are saved on your computer, information about every tile and whether it's walkable and whether you can visit or what set of other tiles you can visit from it. Teleportation information, a lot of that is kind of manually gathered. Information about which doors can be opened, where ladders take you, et cetera, et cetera. The point is, if you have all that, you can start to do some really interesting algorithmic that let you figure out the most efficient route for some set of available teleports to get from one place to another.
That's cool.
That would be super useful for when archaeology.
So someone was telling me that Alt1 has a similar function. What's the difference between this project and that, if you're familiar with that tool?
Not actually super familiar with what Alt1 does in that space. I don't believe they're doing anything granular to the level of like finding the exact best route. I believe what they don't do pathfinding. They I think they just recommend teleports. Does that sound right?
Yeah. So basically for Alt1, you've got your more in-depth world map that shows particular teleport methods and what options to use. For example, if you were to right-click your Dungeoneering skill cape, you would press either 1 through 9 or then 0 and then 1 through whatever. So it tells you what is closest and how how to teleport to get there, but it doesn't do path finding to that
much
degree.
further than that. This could find if it turns out that the most efficient way to get from point A to point B is by teleporting somewhere, then taking a canoe and then talking to someone that takes you through a maze and then going into a dungeon that takes you some other random place. If it turns out that's the most efficient way to get there, and it's if it is, I'm sure no one has really realized that. And if you want to figure out how to get through the Tree Gnome Village maze, we will give you the exact walking directions to get there. I mean, we won't tell you turn left here, but it'll be on the map. That's the degree of accuracy that we can actually provide with this data that we have.
That is some good utility, and will definitely change things like safe cracking runs and these more complex scan clues. That I don't know if it has the capacity to look at a particular area.
Scan clues are actually interesting. That's sorry. I never thought about it, but like scan clues, you have all those points, right? Where it can be, and then you can check, all of them.
Yeah,
you can
I have to think about that a little bit.
The efficient path to take to like be within range of every single possible point.
Yeah,
right?
That seems like a harder algorithm problem to solve. I know someone on Reddit claimed to have created like optimal scan clue.
Yeah, those are based on the assumptions. Those are based on the assumptions that every single coordinate has the exact same frequency. So I don't know if you can go that.
It's not even right under that assumption.
Right, but even so, if you could goad that out of Jagex, I think by what you've told us about the capabilities of the Google Maps, I don't think you'd have too difficult a time looking at the coordinated potential dig points on a scan clue and providing a route. I have faith in you.
Something this is coming together partially because we figured out how this data is stored on the client side, but it's also because we're starting to really build out our infrastructure to support these maybe not super essential but peripheral projects. So really what we're likely to end up doing is we'll provide APIs that people can use to build their own tools if they so desire.
So you see the wiki as being even a platform, because I've seen people say, like, why does the wiki does this and RuneHQ and Zybez does this, and then Alt1 does this, and why are they duplicating efforts or whatever? But you could see the wiki could be a platform that people could build RS tools on top of.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the biggest things that we haven't really been pushing it so far, but as we've moved towards launching this new site and having this technical infrastructure around us, yeah, that is, it's not a stretch to say that's the single most exciting thing going forward about this launch is we have the opportunity to provide the data we have, the specific sort of algorithmic tools we have, anything we build, community, and they can use that to maybe make their own calculators. And there's a lot of unknowns about some parts of that. Like at this point, it's not clear people want. Like we don't really just want to build out this whole thing and not get anyone to use it.
Right. How many developers are going to take advantage?
It doesn't have to be.
What do they want?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like really detailed technical developers. It could be someone who wants to make a better calculator for. It could be anything. It could be someone who just has basic spreadsheet type skills.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how every player has that minute right before they start to embark on a particular journey, training method, where they want to plan, right? Where they want to determine. Yeah, it depends who you are, right? It could be a minute, it could be an hour, but we have a lot of players that could contribute, their findings or how they're using particular calculations or why they are performing particular calculations. So all players go through this, but we have a particularly small subset of the population that is actively contributing towards the wiki. So here's a question for you. So how are you approaching trying to get more players involved, and how can players get involved with contributing?
We would love anyone to contribute. That's makes us happier than just about anything in the world, is having more people who are actually passionate about adding content and contributing what they know to the website and to the community. It just makes us so happy. But specifically talking about how do we get more high level people who are really detail oriented and might have a lot of specific methods and approaches that are superior, more efficient, contribute to the wiki. How do we get them to add what it's not easy, because there's been it was certainly the case in the past that a lot of the training guides, the monster strategies, all these things were geared not towards the highest level imaginable, but really doing our best to hit the middle ground. It's tough because let's take for example, we have a lot of money making guides where some parts of this might be one of the variables. We kind of talked about this with relation to corporeal beast, is how many monsters you kill an hour is not just a constant for any particular person. It depends on your skills. It depends on your setup. It depends on your actual skills. And we've made these guides in the past, and really kind of continuing to this day, we've had to just guess at a number that seemed appropriate relative to the to the community at large, and realizing that it might be a bit much for your 50th percentile player, but might be unreasonably low for your 99.9th percentile player. And this has been a problem for as long as we've been writing these sorts of guides. And there's no particularly great solution.
Well, I think you kind of spoke to one. Something
I
that
think
does
that
help ease is
editing the
players
input.
will adjust further. Yeah, you're adding the input that is unknown, right? Which is how rare are these particular drops, and then players themselves they're the only people who are going to know how many kills per hour they can achieve, right? So you can't assume this person has the stats they're going to achieve this many kills per hour.
Value. But you need it. But you need it to be dynamic, where you can input your own values there.
Your kills. Yes,
and
exactly.
that I don't think is currently the case with those guides.
It's not currently the case. I think we've done a huge amount of work in the last, not so much this last year, but the year before that, on all sorts of details about monster stats directly on the wiki. So if you want to know for some specific guard that you can kill, of course that's what you guys do when you want to be efficient, right? Is kill guards.
Gotta get those medium clues somehow.
Yeah. So we want to provide all of the stats, make this guard who he is or who she is.
That's right. It's 2018. Can't assume.
Right. So there's to that are just kind of data entry, things like that. But then the pipe dream we have is, once we have all of that data, and at this point, for the most part, we do, we want to move more towards personalizing the guides that we have, personalizing the monster info boxes, all of this information, where if we know your username is, whether that's associated with your wiki account somehow, or you just type it in and we remember it for later, if we know that, we can figure out your stats, and you can start to keep track of maybe what methods you use to kill things. We can calculate your accuracy. We can, for some particular, I mean, you guys probably aren't using Revolution anymore, but for some particular bar, we can figure out your,
Enter does
yeah,
it.
Yeah, a lot of people are still going to be using Revolution.
But
yeah,
actually,
is pretty good. Yeah,
it is. We really, as part of this new wiki, we want to move towards more personalized information, which means we know your levels, we know what boosts you have, and boosts are very needed to get right and fully mimic what Jagex actually implements them as, because man, it is a mess. It is a mess in there.
Well, there's always, and we honestly, a big part of our efficiency calculations, there's so much debate like amongst ourselves about like how do these two boosts interact? Like, are they additive? Are they multiplicative?
Are they floored? Are they multiplicative? Are they additive?
Yeah, it's all like that. But but what you were, the personalization, it sounds really appealing. What I'm curious about is there any possibility that people would be able to link their wiki accounts directly to their in-game accounts, the way that RuneClan does, right? Because on RuneClan, you can create an account, hop 3 times, verify that you own the account, the RuneScape account.
Yeah, so this is something we've actually been, we can talk about this. This is something we've talked to Jagex about. We can't put words in their mouth. We can't, suggest that there's going to be a specific timeline for this, or even that it will necessarily happen. But there's a lot of interest from them in creating some form of authentication between a wiki account and your in-game account, and there might be data passed in both directions. So we might be able to get information about who you are. I think in the case of RuneClan,
that would be incredible.
It's one of those things that is probably a long way off if it ever happens, but it would be pretty.
Well,
good.
I was just describing their verification system, but this would be even better. This would be
the RuneClan part might not be as necessary for us. Is impersonating someone on RuneClan has consequences, which is you can pretend to be in a clan that maybe that person actually isn't in. On impersonating someone on your personal RuneScape Wiki account has no such consequences as far as I can tell. If you want to pretend to be Zezima and get personalized information as if you were Zezima, that's fine. I don't think Zezima really has a problem with that.
So that's a good point. And just revisiting something we touched on before is you're taking stats and player data that is immediately retrievable based on either high scores or maybe in the future conversation with in-game files. But you spoke briefly about this kill rate, and so there's a lot of nuances to player behavior, right? So two players can have the same stats, and they can get a lot. They can get varied results from particular methods. So I guess my question for you is something you're considering, for example, with these money-making guides or monster records, is there going to be some level of dynamic field where you could say your kills per hour, and based off the known or established drop rates, it could spit out an actual GP per hour? Is that the end goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't commit to that specific view of things. I will say on a really high level, yes, the way to get to personalization is to let the players vary the parameters that are input to this guide. And whether that's the kills per hour, whether it's something we kind of calculate for you, because your average player probably can't look at a particular monster and say, hey, I can kill 420 of those an hour just by looking at it. We can at least start to get some reasonable estimates.
Right.
But yeah, that something along those lines is the end goal, both for money-making guides and also for skill training guides, because there's only we generally provide base rates on these skill training guides, and the reason for that is that for the most part, any boosts that are applied are going to be applied sort of regardless of the method. And I realize you can call me out on specific cases where that's not going to be true, but a large number of these boosts are completely general. So if you're getting 250,000 an hour from this one method, just by forgetting that we're in 2018 now and not 2007 and all these pull score boosts exist, that's fine. And so if we say that one thing is 250K and another thing is 300K, if you have boosts and kind of other approaches that might increase that by 50%, it's going to increase both of those by 50%. So kind of the argument in the past for using these base rates rather than something that might be more applicable to your really top tier of player is end rate in and of itself.
Yeah, so that's something that definitely merits further discussion, right? Because there are multiplicative, and there are things that affect success chance, which are a multiplicative success chance or an additive success chance.
I mean, there's aspects of that get really complicated for us. So something
definitely.
Something as simple as like let's pretend none of these boosts exist, and we just want to figure out the best way to get you from 1 to 99 woodcutting by using some set of 10 trees, let's say. That's all well and good. We can get a whole bunch of information about, maybe you're dropping these, maybe you're banking them, maybe we kind of take into account what your time value of money is when we're determining these rates. However, because I'm wrong, to the best of my knowledge, these success rates for tree cutting or for fishing or in its most basic level, it's kind of late. To us. So our attempts to even just say, okay, if you have 50 wood cutting and you're cutting a willow tree continuously, we don't have the information needed to be able to produce a rate for that. Really know how that scales from 1 to 99 without
what
testing.
about the PvM? What about the PvM guides? Like Inter, right? You've done pretty much all the high-level PvM in the game. Why do you think the Wiki's PvM guides are where they should be? And if not, why haven't you edited them personally? Or how do you think that information should get there?
I think personally, I was pretty happy with Telos guide when I looked at it. I thought it was well made. But why I don't edit Wiki myself is, I guess it takes a lot of time and to just articulate things to people in a way that it's not just something in your mind that's like, oh, you do this on P5 or like an alternative method of doing a phase, for example. Like there are many ways to do P5 on Telos, but there is like one specific way that almost always guarantees you the kill. But like you
And is
wanna,
that the one on the guide?
I believe so. I think it was like when I looked at it, it was so well made that I thought that this could like I could ship that to anyone. But I've not looked at anything else. But yeah, why I don't do that is just it takes a lot of time. It's not like I don't know. I
Or is
just
there a lot of stuff that like you're doing on the fly that you can't really put
Yeah,
into
it's
words
like-
for a guide? It's like you notice something and then you quickly use an ability that you might not have used in different
Yes,
circumstances.
absolutely. It's constant optimization of the kill. And one like specific thing that I found out for Solak that nobody abuses is on P2, for example. After you get the first bomb, you use preparation, and if you get hit at least once, then no matter what you do in between, you can res the next bomb. And it's something that
Yeah.
you get with experience, but it's not something that I can just tell somebody that, oh, use preparation here because that's just the best way. I mean, I would say that it should be as simple as possible for the person who is first looking at the wiki and trying to do the boss, because nobody's gonna really look at it when they've done like a
Or
100,
is there like
200.
I've noticed on YouTube some PVM YouTubers make like a guide to your first kill, an advanced guide, something like that.
Yeah, I guess
That could-
that's
that
the
could be
best
the
approach,
answer, right?
really. Yeah, but then again, if you do that, then it's like twice or triple the work because it's completely
Right,
different.
but you might
for-
have different people making those. You might have the person with the most experience saying, this is the absolute meta currently, right? Here's how you optimize your rotations. Here's how you adapt during the kill.
Well,
And then you
it's-
may have people who are more casual who are saying, this is the easiest way to get your first kill.
Like
'Cause-
the problem in the game is that we have 4-tick. I love 4-tick, of course, but it's not something you can like incorporate in a guide, because 4-ticking is by far the best method for Solak. And I mean, you can take like armor switches and whatnot, but if you want consistent kills, you're gonna mage, you're gonna 4-tick. And so to explain to a new person how to 4-tick your vulnerabilities and how to sort of abuse auto attacks, it's not something that they want to know. They want to know how to do the boss, but it's like a core part of doing the boss efficiently and well.
Gotcha. So there's definitely a
you're-
lot of work that's going to be involved with incorporating a more beginner guide, and then a more advanced guide, and possibly a full meta guide that changes week to week to month to month, depending on balancing for the character, right? Armor, weapons, etc., or balancing of the boss itself. So I guess what we're looking at now is the new wiki is going to be live in just a few days. So how can players who are looking to get involved, what can they do? What they say they want to write these guides, they want to contribute this content. How can they get involved?
Yeah, for lack of a better word, they can come talk to me. I am cook#2222 on Discord. So if you want to talk to me about writing any sort of guide, we will, like I said, we will love you forever. We are speaking personally. I'm not, with my 81 cooking, laugh as you may. I'm not anyone's idea of a really dank PVMer. I mean, I'm personally speaking, I discover like a lot of the specific mechanics of early EOC stuff, and I'm maybe more than my stats would imply, but I'm not ever going to be the guy that's going to write the top tier meta Telos guide. That's just not what I am, and that's quite frankly not what a lot of the really deep wiki contributors are. We just don't have that background. We spend
So what if those people exist? Like, what's stopping them from editing, other than like right is saying time, which is basically selfishness. And yeah, like some people aren't going to want to
it's a matter of-
volunteer their time.
of incentive, and I think to me at least, there's a huge amount of value in being able to say, hey, I wrote this thing. It is now this artifact that hundreds of thousands of people can now use to improve their abilities at this specific bit of content.
And to
It's-
enjoy the game
it's
more,
something-
definitely.
Or just to get better at it. Who knows if those are the same thing or not. But like,
And of
our-
course, there is a title to be earned as well.
Yeah, sure. Let's call that out a little bit. So if you're one of those people that is trying to do that whole true trim thing where you get all the titles, or if you just want a cool title for feeling appreciated for contributing to the wiki, we have a title called the Wikian that Shawnee, God bless him, Mod Shawnee, is still with us. He created a title for us called the Wikian, and we have a process where people who contribute to the wiki, whether it's a series of small edits or maintenance or a standalone guide that really makes a huge difference, we just give out that title as a token of appreciation for reading something when you really don't have to. It's rising above that. Andrew, you called it selfishness, but rising above that
Or laziness.
or prioritization of time. Let's be political here. That other people can use, because our Virago guide is at a point, it's gotten, I think, millions of views at this point. That's not to say it's helped millions of people, but it's helped like so many people to get better at that specific bit of content in a way that they just opportunity to do prior. So yeah, I guess this is the audience we have right now. If you have some bit of RuneScape knowledge that you feel is not adequately represented on the wiki right now, feel like it might be worth your time to write that down, make it, put it to posterity, can come around centuries later and actually just make some sense out of it. If you have that knowledge and you want to share it, we don't bite that much. We really we love people who go out of their way to contribute their like really specialized knowledge.
And things like syntax and proper formatting, those are things that could be worked around, right? Like you don't need to know
if you don't know anything about how wikis work, or dude, if you write like a Google Docs guide and you send it to us and it's good, we'll make it work.
Well,
Excellent.
Oh yeah, and there's on this new wiki, there's a lot of editing guides that can give you kind of specific tips for both in terms of syntax and how to make things work in a wiki framework, and also maybe just how to frame what you want to say in a way that is maybe more appropriate for a wiki context. And we just all I can say is if you're a person with that kind of background and you have something to share, this is the place to share it.
Excellent.
Thank you, Cook and Kelsey, for joining us and giving us perspective on the wiki. Make sure to check out the fork, everyone. RuneScape.wiki, oldschool.runescape.wiki. Information is outdated now, but as of October 2nd, with the full launch, it will all be up to date.
Correct.
Right. And if you want to contribute, reach out to Cook. I think you were #2222.
Lucky we.
Or the RuneScape Wiki Discord, which we'll link in the description too. We'll link everything. Don't worry.
All right. So I think we've exhausted the news we have to discuss today, and discussed as much as we care to discuss right now the last year. So
Shane,
I'd like to. Yep.
Can you end us on a light note, Shane?
What's up?
Well, you know what time it is.
A light note.
Yeah.
Come on, sing it out.
Light note?
Support
That
that.
was pretty light. That was pretty light.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Is it? Do you have a question for us? Something you might like to know about the boys?
Oh, yeah. I forgot we did that. Get to know the boys, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what you,
What is it?
okay, right.
What's the question?
Yeah, Randalicious. Randalicious he goes, howdy there, folks. Big fans. Just want to know what you've been up to while you've been away, while the podcast has been on hiatus. Well, that's a good question, mate. Actually, well, over the break, I actually completed my accounting degree. So I've just been doing a lot of businessman activities. I've been conference calls, talking to people. I've been pointing a lot, just pointing.
These are some intense meetings.
Business synergy. Just been discussing business synergy. Yeah, that sort of stuff. What about you?
Is this in game or in real life?
Real life.
What have I been up to in real life since we went on hiatus? Let's see.
Yeah. No,
Well, I
mean,
guess
it can include your in-game. Just what have you been up to?
in game been making good progress towards 5.4. Should be done early next year, hopefully. Depends on how lazy I get. And outside of that, right now I'm going through applying to grad school, so that's an awful lot of fun. And it's also a career change for me. But yeah, I'm trying to get a master's in computer science, so that'll be fun.
Awesome.
Gunner.
All right. So in game, working towards True Trim as always. Outside the game, hard at work. If you are unaware, if you've never talked to me before, I work for a defense contractor in purchasing, and I'm averaging anywhere between 55 and 60 hours a week. And in my free time, playing a lot of Scape and discussing updates, getting pretty hyped as usual. So I recently, as of the last podcast, moved in with my girlfriend. I've been looking for a house, maybe multifamily, try to make some IRL GP. But otherwise, just keeping on.
The lady, sorry. Did you say
Yeah,
lady?
the lady.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh, how is she?
She's a great woman. We'll leave it at that.
Inter, what have you been doing?
Hey, I ain't gonna say nothing about IRL, but I wanted to tap into that wiki thing. I would say that.
Oh my god.
I would want to say that I actually sort of I'm now interested in editing.
Woo!
Oh, you got to
There you
convert.
go. We got one.
you
You've done a good job. Well done, Cookie.
So yeah, I'll be looking out for it. And
Cookie. How do you feel about the nickname Cookie?
It's not the least flattering one I have.
What is?
Probably
What
up
is?
there.
Yeah,
that's it.
now
What
we gotta
is?
know.
I can dig it.
Okay. All right. So we'll go from there. So Cook, do you actually want to Cook and Kelsey? Do you actually want to go through the wiki change? Anything about yourselves that you want the audience to know?
Well, this is my first time on here, so are we just going like from my birth or since the last time?
From your
Yes, from birth
before
in
this
excruciating
podcast
detail.
until this podcast? Tell us about yourselves.
In the last 2 hours, what has changed?
Sure.
Sure, in the last 2 hours, I drank
What is the
a bit of
wiki?
vodka out of a teacup. That was a lot of fun. I'm currently
What are all the wiki people doing right now?
What I'm saying, I think, is the main thing. They're
Falling asleep.
filming me falling asleep. It's actually 3 a.m. Over in Cambridge, but we're hard at work. Maybe not at this exact moment, but we're hard at work at kind of doing some final pushes to get the wiki into a good place so we
And
can actually launch.
RuneFest is coming up. Can our listeners meet you at RuneFest?
Be there. There's gonna be like 12 of us. 12 of us at RuneFest. We're gonna have our swanky RuneScape Wiki shirts. It's gonna be awesome. Oh yeah, we have badges. Sorry, people are like yelling things to me to say kind of I'm a
How much
puppet.
vodka was in that teacup?
Badges that you can get. Just come talk to us. We'll try not to bite. We might bite sometimes. That's just in our nature. And then I think we're gonna be on the RuneFest studio stream at some point to kind of go over some of the wiki stuff. So that's gonna be a lot of fun.
All right, look out for that.
All right, excellent. So I think that that closes out. Getting to know the boys is always a favorite topic of discussion, and that's why we keep Shane around for the levity. But so I want to thank everybody who contributed towards this podcast and brings this lively discussion to life. So if you want, please check out the links in the description. We're going to include a lot of resources that we've discussed over the course of the 5.5 hours that we've been recording, however long it is. So please visit the EE clan chat, Discord, PM any of us if we have our friends chat on. We're always open to discuss. So thank you very much, and we'll be back. In the near future with topics to discuss. So thank you everyone for listening, and as always, happy scaping.